That's okay. All right, finna jump. You got it. Man, I'm slow now. All right, y'all. So we are here today to experiment. We are here today to learn how to be ourselves, and learn how to, express ourselves in a way that is in alignment to both of us. Because, when it comes to growing our organization, there's been a lot of detachment, a lot of learning, a lot of lessons that we've been going through that we want to have space to share, because it's valuable to anybody that is growing their organization. It's valuable to anybody that is ascending into a level of collective creative direction. And so it requires people to share their perspective, to share what they're learning, because we're in a time now where there is such a need for collective infrastructure. And we've been so programmed to pour into our individualistic perspectives for so long, and it's beautiful to do that. However, within that realm, there needs to be balance. And so we've gone through seasons of initiation to where we've decided to pour fully into this collective organization, and that has taught us so many lessons, and we're utilizing this as a way for us to express that. And so before we even started our organization, Soulprint, and I say our organization because this is a collective thing, right? We are the people that have recognized the frequency that is needed in the world and decided to put action behind it. But we are not the only people that will and are doing that. And so before we recognized that frequency and the need for this community, we were actually building our own brands, our own missions, pouring into our own purposes. And we met each other and realized that our missions, everything that we've been doing, has the same exact intention. And it is really the same mission expressed in a different way. And so when we met, we realized that we wanted to birth something together. We wanted to create something together, and we created an event. And from that, our community was birthed. And then we had to eventually get to a place within ourselves and recognize that we cannot be pouring our energy in multiple places, into our own personal brands and to the community organization, because it requires more nourishment to grow to a level where it can be self-sustaining. And so it required a lot of detachment, a lot of ego death, and this is an opportunity for us to express how that has been. And so I want to ask my queen, how has it been to detach from your brand? How has it been to recognize that? And what was it that made you recognize that this is something that is priority over what you were doing initially by yourself? And then how is that journey been?
That's an amazing question, King Tiago. That journey was a roller coaster, to be honest, because when he first decided to prioritize Soulprint, like, I felt it in my soul. Yeah, I know that this is what we should do, but it felt comfortable to cling on and hold on to Mindful Couture, the brand I was creating, because I know that I've been doing it for years. Like, it makes me feel good. I'm proud of everything that I've done with it. I have a vision for it. And like, this is what I saw myself doing for the rest of my life. I would tell everybody. But what made me know, like, my energy needs to go towards Soulprint is because it happened so effortlessly, so easeful. And like, with Mindful Couture, yes, in a way, but like, the thing is that we didn't even want to create an organization with Mindful Couture. I was like, yes, I'm going to have a business. I'm going to have a clothing brand that's going to change people's lives. And that's beautiful. But like, we didn't even try to have an organization. We didn't even try to build a soul tribe. And we did. And it was just natural for us to feed this community. And it's like, there's nothing that I've seen that's like Soulprint, that's leaving an imprint on people's souls and inspiring them to create, activating them. Like, you're literally seeing the difference in people's lives after they step into an event. And it's so effortless too. And I remember in our first event at 11/11, I was selling some of my Mindful Couture shirts. And I remember, like, since we were hosting, when I stepped off the stage, I had multiple people ask me, how can I support and buy from you, And when I was like doing Mindful Couture, doing these pop-ups, I felt like I kind of had to like not like convince people to buy from me, have a little pitch, talk about it. But people naturally came to me because of the environment that we created at 11:11, and that felt so beautiful. But like what King Tiago said, our missions are one and the same, and it feels really good to have someone who is literally like I said, the same mission. And I remember, like, on my vision board for 2025, I literally had pictures of a team, of a tribe, because I wanted like people to be a part of Mindful Couture. But this is me thinking, like, come from the ego perspective, like, I'm gonna do this till I die, and I'm gonna have a team, and I'm gonna be the leader of it, and things of that sort. So I'm really grateful that King Tiago was able to allow me to receive the remembrance that it's important for us to collectively create, collectively be sovereign. And we're in a world where we do need collaboration over competition, because that's something that really wasn't in my consciousness before I met him. And I was programmed to think in an individualistic way, but honestly, like, Mindful Couture, like, I know that it wouldn't have been able to grow as expansive, because if it was, I was still doing that. And I know that with Soulprint, since this is a collective organism, and we literally, like, this is a decentralized autonomous organization where all of us have a say, we're able to expand, like, beyond any limits because of our tribe, because of community, because of the numbers, because of the masses, like your mind, my mind, our being, our spirit. So yeah, I've learned like a lot of detachment, surrender, and control, because when it came to me having my own business, my own creation, it did feel good to have complete control of my designs, like my content, all of those things. But it does take trust to know that I'm also being seen, I'm also creating, although all these other people are creating as well. And it feels really good. Right. I'm gonna stop
and heavy on the effort, right? Like, we did not plan this, and that's that's the biggest thing to recognize, and that's what is so natural for us as human beings, is to move with the energy that we're feeling, right? And if something is naturally flowing in one direction, any resistance is from the ego, right? So the attachments that we had to our personal brands, and I actually created this whole system. I created all these different strategies for my brand a few days before we fully decided to go everything into Soulprint. I created a pricing system. I was like, I was gonna do this many covers this many times a month. I was gonna do a podcast once every month. I was gonna do these different photo shoots and different, clothing line collections throughout the whole year. I had it all mapped out for a year, and that was a few days before we decided and had a ceremony to pour fully into Soulprint. And so it requires a lot of detachment, and it requires a lot of surrender of the ego, because our organization is called Soulprint, right? And we mean that. It's not ego print, right? So we have to surrender our ego so that we can pour fully into something that is not just ours, right? And also what you were talking about with the vision for the, I was gonna be a CEO and I was gonna be this leader of this whole team. It's like, that's the dream that we're sold. That's the program that we're given. That's not the truth of reality, though. That's not how things in nature. The trees aren't like, I got dominion over the land, I got dominion, you plant, serve me. No, they're in an ecosystem where there are these shared resources. And so it required us to release our ego and allow for nature to take its course, and allow for Soulprint to be birthed in a way that nature designed it to. And so this entire experience has been very, very educational, very expanding in our consciousness, and it requires so much surrender. And so within the season that we're in now, we're in a season where we are seeking to experiment so that we can find more harmony, right? Because when it comes to our organization up to this point, we've been doing events, and we've been doing these more consistently. Our first ever event was in November, Conscious Creators Night, and we did that on 11/11. And then after that we had Souls Giving, which was right after Thanksgiving. And then after that we had our January 10th Conscious Creators Night Part 2. And then we had our film screening. And then after that we had our Creators Day. And so these were happening back to back to back.
Yeah, we was used to that, doing.
We were very used to that. We were very used to that. Yo, it's crazy to think back on, like, all of that shit was birthed in a few months.
Yeah.
and it's beautiful. However, understanding again that we as individuals, as souls, are here to surrender our egos, right? And we got to a point within our journeys where doing was no longer what we were called to do, and we were being called more into being, right? And so that has been a whole season where we're still learning how do we be, but how do we also balance that out with what our soul wants to do, right? Because we are also human beings, but at the same time we're here to express ourselves, we're here to put our energy towards something and play our roles, because we aren't the ego, but we exist as the ego, the same way that we are the soul, but we aren't we are both. And so within that, we have to give space to both of these things, and the soul just bees. That's all the soul does. The soul is being, and the soul is accepting, and the soul will go and surrender to anything in the material because it knows it is eternal and it has no resistance to anything.
The soul does like to experience.
Yes, the soul loves to expand, and the ego will tell you like, nah, I don't want to do that because I have an image in my mind of something that I see. But the soul will accept whatever the natural flow is. And so we've gotten to a point where doing was no longer the natural flow. And we realized that. And that was a big revelation for us. And we've been in this season for a month. About a month. How long has it been now?
Yeah, about
a month. And so this season is now calling for something new, right? And so there's been a lot of beingness on my queen's part, because we aren't doing those events as consistently. However, we have all this content that has been in this vault, and I've been chipping away at it. It's like I've been getting it piece by piece by piece, but it's shit a big ass vault. And so it's like I've been needing support. So she put out a call to editors from all over the world.
I loved it.
It was amazing because it got people from Washington, from Virginia, all interested in supporting our vision, right? Because that's the thing, it is our vision. It is not ours. We released our ego. We had our vision. Now this is the collective's need and natural soul expansion. And so they heard this call and they have desired to pour into something with this mission. And so now we're creating this editing onboarding system where we can have that support. We can build this team all with the recognition that we're building for the collective. We're not building solely for ourselves. And so we are becoming a decentralized autonomous organization. And within that comes a lot of surrendering, because no longer does one person call all the shots. We have to hold space for everybody's natural expression, everybody's natural creation and desires and perspectives. And so within the season that we're in now, I've been doing so much of this editing. So I'm in this season of doing stuff. And I was in a season of being, but I realized right now within our circumstance, because we're also in a divine union. And so our circumstance, whatever she got, I got, whatever I got, she got. We are in a space where we need more finances to survive and to continue to thrive. And so I am also stepping more into more doing, more thinking about ways in which we can benefit and just sustain ourselves and grow to naturally what we were put on this planet to be. And so it's putting me even more of a do, thinking about how can we make the level of abundance to sustain and thrive. And so I've been putting more time into doing. Naturally, she's putting more time into being. And so I want you, my queen, to share, how has that been? How has it been learning how to be? You know, I know that for a while you were in this do with your brand, constantly doing things, calling the shots, designing in this way, making videos, posting it. You had your own self-sovereignty, but now it's like we are a team. And so this is like, our divine union is the first expression of that team, sharing this perspective, coming and realizing that we make choices together. And now it's like expanding to this tribe where we make choices together. And so how has that been for you, for surrendering that do and turning more into and relaxing onto being? And how has that felt in your body? And how is that thought process getting in
It has been uncomfortable, to be honest, because obviously there was a lot of doing with Mind and Things More, and I also grew up with a lot of doing, seeing that I had to do in order to feed my ego. And yeah, like, I'm grateful that I did get to be, though, because I always knew that I did want to be. Even though I was doing all of this, I did feel like in the back of my mind, I should experience more being. And like, even before May, right? When we were doing events back to back, we were doing film dates like all day back to back as well. And it just like, it's comfortable because I'm used to this reality, but I know deep down, this is not what my soul should be doing. So, but you know, neutrality though, because now that I'm in this being, I'm like, I want to channel my energy somewhere as well, because then my ego feels like, oh, well, I guess I'm not expressing it, just Tiago is utilizing his creative energy. But I know that's not true. So it's like I'm becoming aware of my ego when it comes to the beingness. I've also like it's allowed me to tap into other creative aspects, other creative outlets that I wouldn't that my ego thinks are not for me, but that's not the truth. Because with Mindful Couture, the way that I was expressing was through clothing and through my voice. However, like, well, through speaking. Now that I'm learning that I actually like to sing. I actually want to sing. I like to dance. We're working on a film. I'm realizing I actually like to act instead of like going over rehearsals with the actors and like communicating. I handle a lot of communication. I do like communicating, but it's like I want to do something more crafty as well. So yeah, like that's how it's been recently. I'm learning a lot about myself and my soul, and it's the biggest thing is surrendering and trusting, because it's like, even though I'm here trusting that King Tiago, he is like, the editing is amazing, you know, we're building the creative infrastructure, everything is divinely orchestrated for highest good. Even though I'm here sitting, I have to still remember that, because I know my avatar and my ego, there was a narrative where that wasn't the case if I wasn't doing. So, you know, it's been a lot of diving into the unseen, you know, being aware of even like, since I was experiencing a lot of being, I noticed myself go towards food a bit more often as well. So it's a lot of awareness of my soul, but it feels, honestly, it feels natural. It feels like this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Yes.
Yeah, and it's like she's learning to trust in me, and I'm learning to surrender and give also to her. And so it's like, through this creation of our organization, it's also the fortification of our divine union. And so it's just such a blessing, and I'm so grateful that we're now taking this time and realizing what is being called for us right now is to have these moments where we can express ourselves, because you deserve the space to express yourself. You know, it's very natural for you, and your vulnerability, your expression is a gift. It's a gift for people that experience it, and it always has been, and that's why people always magnetize to you. And so it's just very natural, and it also requires, right? Like, it can't be at the same time without an intention. It can't be without a system, right? Because I'm over here, and there have been moments, and we'll share this, there have been moments where she wants to make a video and just put it and post it. And like, me in my mind, and this is me just thinking about the vision, right? And I'm like, all right, that's amazing. But does this correlate to Soulprint and our mission? And does this have any system to where it's like, it makes sense, right? And so it's like, we're now figuring out how can we give space to both of these different things. And so this is one of the ways in which we can do that. And I'm grateful that, you know, we've come to this point now where we can actually create a system for this, and I see us doing this more consistently.
Yeah.
And I think it's a great way to document our journey, a great way to document, you know, the birth of this organization, because whether it's every month or, you know, whatever we decide, right, it's gonna just be so great to look back on, and just for other people to also experience and reflect on, because we're truly doing things that this world hasn't seen, right? Like, we decided that the normal way that we're programmed to be isn't what our soul wants to be. It's not what comes natural to us, and naturally not resisting. We're naturally flowing without resistance to the education system that we were in, without resistance to, you know, the 9 to 5 that we're told that we should be in. Like, there's so many different things that are the way of success, or what the world likes to call successful, that we knew in our soul was not aligned for And so we decided to do things that were in alignment, and it's led us to this point. And so it's also a example and a expression and a call for those that may feel a resistance to work in their 9 to 5. It's a call for those that may feel like they don't want to be in a school system, in an institution. And so they may see us as an example and be like, okay, look at this entire archive of these conversations and look at what they are building together. Wait, I can follow my soul. Wait, I can walk in my purpose. And so I'm really grateful that we are taking the time to do this, because it is very important. It's documenting the journey, and that is so key, because it is also the blueprint, right? Because what we're building is really just a level of consciousness, and that level of consciousness is so beyond just this current moment in time. It's beyond the current space that we occupy, which is New York, and it's really a global natural flow of energy. The world is waking up, and we are here to be examples that we are not to resist the light that is naturally coming to this planet, not to resist all the ideas that we are naturally having, and the fire that is burning within us when we look at the world and we're like, what the fuck is going on? This is not right. This is not natural. We shouldn't have to do what we have to do just to survive. It's not normal. And so we are aware of that, and we're like, all right, let's take action. What can we do so that we can live with our soul? And that was our organization. So for us to be able to be these beacons and document these revelations and this path is such a blessing. And I'm so glad that you're able to express yourself, because I know how much you've been wanting, and I know how much it is important for us to have a sister behind that. And so I'm glad that we are creating that. And it's also been very interesting, because it's like working as a team, right? In this divine union, but beyond our divine union, the team that is expanding with our tribe and with our community, right? It requires us to know ourselves and know what we can provide, what our goal is. You know, for example, when it comes to what has to be done within our organization right now, a lot of editing has to be done, a lot of finding spaces for films, a lot of preparing scripts and doing rehearsals and communicating with different people and making these journals. And within all of that, there are different skill sets that we both have that may look a certain way. So for example, I have the skill set of editing, and it may not be editing that this is art, get over it, right? However, I understand that my mission is in alignment to Soulprint's mission, and so I'm utilizing my creativity for the collective. And I'm not like literally the posts that I've been editing. For example, the last one, we had an amazing Soul Park day, and that was an expression of our entire tribe. And so it wasn't necessarily my voice, however it was our voice, and I surrender my ego knowing that it's okay. I don't have to always, put my voice on the platform. It is our voice. And so I'm utilizing my creativity, my energy, my drive for all of us. And so like I also want that to be recognized as well, because it's like I'm really surrendering my ego the same way that you're surrendering your ego. And within the skill set that I have with editing, I understand that you also are not called to edit, right? So I'm in the space where I know my role right now is to edit. My role right now is to create these systems. My role right now is to create financial stability and abundance. And so I'm doing that, and I'm creating that, and her role looks different. And so she's learning how to do that. And so I want to hear from you, what is it that you feel like your role is in this current season?
In this current season, I feel like my role has been, and it has always been, a lot of communication, which is important for people to be aware. Whether that's us confirming a location or confirming an actor, And then also like I love to express true, real, raw authenticity. I love to share love. Like when it comes to Soulprint's events, I do like to post, and I do like to create. Like he does a lot of the editing content, and then he has this camera where he record like the content, which is beautiful. And we need to get the tribe the content, obviously, but I know that like my avatar was very used to myself. Like I really love to just express myself. Like I had my YouTube channel where I was just like crying and shit, being raw and posting that. And I'm really grateful that we get to like share authenticity and truth collectively, because that's important. So I do feel like I'm playing my role right now by expressing it. Like even me making that video, looking for the editors to support King Tiago, because there's a lot of editors. I feel good expressing on TikTok, hey, we're looking for editors. I know y'all like that dystopian film. You guys can receive the discount if you did this for you. Assistance in editing, and like just being truthful and hitting posts. It just feels very like, it feels very freeing. Like I love to utilize social media to express my voice. So that's what feels like my role is currently in this season. And what again with B, I feel very grateful that I get to be in a space where I can think about other areas that I can, you know, channel my creative energy. And like what King Tiago said about how he has had to put soul over ego when it comes to editing our videos. Like for me, I was journaling and I realized that I can do the same thing when it comes to having these rehearsal calls with the actors to make sure they understand the lines, for Dystopia to understand the piece. That even though that might not be my ultimate passion, doing that because I understand the purpose and the mission behind Soulprint, and how important it is for people to realize that they too can create from their soul and build with their own tribe, and also have their creative visions and seen. So just knowing that it fuels me to, you know, do the communication, have these rehearsals. So yeah, and like for myself, so the being, communicating and expressing more, and like King Tiago said, we are experiencing her. He understands the value in these systems and being intentional when it comes to editing. And myself, I kind of just move intuitively. If I feel called to speak, I'm just like, I'm gonna speak, and I'm not gonna think, I'm gonna just hit post. And it feels very natural when I do that, and the world tends to love it as well. And I feel like it's because I'm not in my head, I'm just doing it, and it feels really freeing. So that's how my system is when it comes to like creating, I will say content of my personal. Because when I think about my clothing brand, I wasn't just posting whatever. But when it comes to just like me, I would do that. So I do think it's important to have systems for that, and to ensure that it does tie to the overall mission of Soulprint. However, I was sharing with King Tiago that I do believe, like earlier, I made a video with King Tiago about our fruit fast, and he was thinking how it might not be too aligned to Soulprint and on my page. But I do feel like it's important for Soulprint, for the Soul Tribe, to understand it just allows for the tribe to understand us more, besides just promoting like events or us in tribe. I think it's also important for us to showcase our journeys when it comes to food, when it comes to the fast, like our intentions behind the fast, us creating space to honor our mind, body, and souls. I feel like that is important. I feel like that is true. I feel like that is powerful and effective. So we're learning, we're experimenting, and like I also want to touch on how us building a decentralized, autonomous organization is something that I am still trusting. And like I know it, but it's like my avatar is still like, okay, I'm just trusting it, like, you know. And it's because apparently there hasn't been a successful one yet. And Tiago and I have been connected to resources of things like co-op organizations, business models that allow for the community to have vote, have say, have ownership. And yes, there's things like co-ops and, you know, solidarity economies. But there isn't something like a decentralized autonomous organization where King Tiago could touch more about that. And that does make me feel a little bit of fear. Well, not fear. I'm not saying it's fear. It's just like my avatar doesn't know, like, is this gonna really work? Is this gonna really work? Is this gonna be a sustainable, effective way for us to sustain ourselves? So that's, I want to be truthful with you guys about that. I'd be grateful that my king is able to remind me of that truth. And
Yeah, I would say that it's like, so there are a few things I want to touch on. First is when it comes to the videos that we recorded and that we can record, it could be me speaking, it could be you speaking. I love this idea, and I want to share with you my hesitation, right? Because it's cool, right? Us recording, us speaking to ourselves, it is soul. It's in alignment because we're sharing our soul. However, the hesitation comes with us continuing to put ourselves as the face of this organization. We'll continue this programming of this being our organization, and not our organization.
Yes.
And so that's why I think it's better for us to create systems first, right? Because I spoke to Obi, shout out Obi. I spoke to Devo, shout out Devo, about the soul revelation content. About all of us, the whole tribe, whoever is here, even Carissa and Caleb that were on our editing onboarding code, right? Like that we can record videos of ourselves sharing our soul and then put that somewhere where we can edit it and then have like a system to where we're releasing that, whatever rhythm we want to release it by. But if it's just us doing it right now, I feel like that's continuing this program that we're trying to escape. And so I don't see that alignment. I do think that we can record ourselves talking and keep those for when the system is built, to where then we can put those out when it's time for it, right? And that goes into the other thing that I wanted to talk about, which is the decentralized autonomous organization. Us seeing no successful one is because it hasn't yet been the time, right? And that's with everything. Everything has a time, and everything comes at the time it's required. And I know that it is almost time. I know that the technology and the way of operating within a decentralized autonomous organization is everything that we're going through. Absolutely. However, they didn't have the community that we have. They didn't have the tribe that they don't have the relationships. And so the thing about all of these unsuccessful decentralized autonomous organizations is that they put the economics and the politics before the community. They created those before they created tribe, right? And what we're doing is we're doing that backwards. We're creating tribe before we create that. And that's exactly what's new. Because when we gather people and we build relationships and we're all knowing that you're my brother, you're my sister, you're my family, then we will be more open to all of us collectively. Okay, this is something that we can explore. Does it work for us? That's when we're going to realize this is something where it does work, because we're all going to be able to have voting power, have say, have sovereignty, where we're all going as a collective. And so I highly recommend and encourage and suggest everybody to do their own research on what a decentralized autonomous organization is. And I can give some insight into it, but I'm also still new to it myself. And it's because it's very new to the world, right? And so for me, I'm somebody that always wants the best for humanity, right? And I also am I've always seen things, and I'm a visionary in the sense of I see before things happen. I know where we're going, I know what's needed, and I can guide us to that place. But it requires trust, it requires surrender for allowing the space for that vision to be a reality, right? Because it's very similar to how our parents feel about us not going the normal route, right? Because they don't see how it could work. But we know what we are, we know what we're doing, we know ourselves, we know our purpose, we know what we're here for, we know the impact we're here to create, we know the legacy that we're here to build. We've known that since before we were even incarnated into these vessels. And it's the same way. I know that this is something that is part of the vision. This is something that is part of the timeline, right? And so it requires the trust and the faith in that, because the more and more that I read into it, the more and more that I study it, the more and more that we continue to move in the way that we're moving, the more it naturally births itself, the same way that this organization naturally births itself, right? And so it really just requires trust. And the biggest thing, it requires us to just know that we're building from our soul. That's it. That's it. Because our soul is going to guide us exactly where we need to be, exactly when we need to be, like eternal. And so we don't got to worry about, oh, is this going to work in the future? Is our soul asking for it right now? Is our soul here right now? Is our soul, yeah, okay, bet, let's keep going, right? Let's keep going. And then naturally it's going to unravel the way it needs to. But, you know, I'm grateful for this conversation so much, because these are conversations that I've been wanting to have with the tribe. I want the tribe.
No, we're having it with the
with
tribe. The tribe
Yeah.
is watching it. You're
Exactly.
the tribe.
You know, like I want the tribe to understand, you know, that I want us all to have a voice. I want us all to be part of the building of this, and us all to have ownership and, you know, power and sovereignty within this organization. And that when it comes to thinking about a decentralized autonomous organization and just what we're building with our tribe, with our Soulprint organization, and it's like a human body, or like any organism, right? There are different parts of the organism, and they all serve a different function, and they all understand their roles, but they're all very required to keeping that organism alive and maintaining its ability to exist in this 3D reality. And so a decentralized autonomous organization is where all these members in the tribe are key to the existence and the growth and the expansion of the organism as a whole. And it's not like the leaves of the tree are creating the decisions for the whole tree. You know, it's got roots, it's got bark, it's got tree, it's got all of it plays a role in its own existence. And it's the same thing with the organization. And so a key thing to understand about a decentralized autonomous organization is that it actually is very linked to blockchain technology, right? And blockchain technology is something that I really want to be an advocate for, the same way as I want to be an advocate for the psychedelic renaissance and the renaissance of plant medicines. And the reason is because it's revolutionary, right? It's a type of technology that is decentralized and built to be decentralized, right? And so if we're building a world, if we have this world where hierarchy isn't a thing, if we have a world where we're all coexisting the way nature coexists, why would we not look to a decentralized technology as a key essential part of birthing that reality, right? So the way in which blockchain works is that the way I describe it, right, is like, think about how these big companies work, where they have all of their information in one data center, right? So whether that's Google, Amazon, Facebook, Instagram, they have all of this data in one center. If that data is, you know, a hurricane happens, that data center gets destroyed. A big flood happens, that data center gets destroyed. Whatever happens to that, the entire platform is completely wiped out, right? You can no longer go on Instagram, you can no longer go on Google, and all of our data on there is also completely erased. So we didn't even have any ownership of what we're creating and putting on these platforms anyway, right? So the way in which blockchain works is it doesn't all exist in one place. There are nodes across every single computer, every single data center that are connected to the blockchain. So if there's, for example, if my computer is connected to the blockchain, if you take out my computer, water gets on it, it's destroyed. It doesn't matter. It doesn't affect the blockchain, because there are computers and different servers all over the world that are connected to that. And so it's the most resilient technology that humans have yet to make when it comes to how digital information can be stored and transferred. And it's also decentralized in the sense of everybody has access to viewing what is on the blockchain and where and when information has been transferred and where to and who it, you know, it has a whole history that cannot be changed. It cannot be changed and distorted in any way. you know, it gets a little bit more different when we're talking about quantum computing, because that's a whole nother tangent. However, there's a lot of technology that is being created, so things are always in flow. However, right now, you know, blockchain is the most resilient technology that we have access to when it comes to storing and transferring digital assets, digital information, and digital assets can be corresponded to physical assets. And so it just makes a lot of sense. And so I'm continuing to do research, I'm continuing to study this and to think about how we can build this out in a way that gives everybody sovereignty. And so just know that the direction that we're going with Soulprint is where everybody has ownership. That's the biggest thing I just want to emphasize. That's the biggest thing. And so, you know, yeah.
That's amazing.
So try.